Welcome back to the beautiful island of Kos in the Aegean Sea, right next to the Turkish coast. In this video, I'm going to show you another of the best game prizes from the ACO World Amateur Championship. The winner of the game is Norbert Fruehauf from Austria. He's a regular player in these ACO events. In fact, this is the 10th ACO tournament that he's played. He must like them. Wonder why. This game was nominated by Grandmaster Zigorz Lanka, renowned trainer and player who's working here analysing games and giving lectures. I think you're going to enjoy this game. It's a reversed Grand Prix attack. Right, let's plunge in. Norbert was playing black and his opponent was Simon Faber from Germany. So starts out as an English, and here we go. The f-pawn is launched down the board, and we have on the board a Grand Prix attack, but with colours reversed. So that means that white has an extra tempo. Okay, so how did Simon use this extra move? He played a3. Well, that means that if the bishop comes to c5, it can be attacked with b4. So the bishop has to play more modestly. So Norbert plays bishop e7, d3, knight f3, so normal development from everyone. And now h6. Well, first we've got a3, and then we've got h6. There's a special place somewhere, but, well, we're going to see the point of h6 any moment. b4. Okay, so a3 allows white to launch forward on the queen side, pushing the b pawn to drive away the knight from c6. Queen e8. So a pretty standard maneuver in these Grand Prix attack positions. Of course, the queen wants to just zip over to h5 and to join the attack very quickly on the king side. Knight d5. So Simon plunges the knight into the middle. Of course, this square is often available for white in these kind of positions. And then, black has a choice. Do you exchange? But that means that knight has to move again. The c-pawn could be vulnerable. Or this move, bishop d8. Now, looks a little bit defensive. Looks slightly odd, with these two bishops on the back rank. But, well, of course, it defends the c7 pawn. And all I'm going to say is watch out for this bishop. It has quite a career ahead of it. Okay, b5. So the knight is pushed from c6, goes back to e7, but now there's pressure on the knight on d5. So that was exchanged off. Now the rook comes up the board. You never know, that might swing across. Let's see. a4. So white is making steady progress on the queen side, and black is going for it on the king side. So that's where the queen belongs, in the danger zone around white's king. So things are now starting to happen. So the phony war is over, and the two sides are locking into battle. So c5. So that's looking to undermine the pawn e5. Of course, if that's taken, then knight takes e5. g5. So that's why Norbert's played the pawn to h6. So it's a pawn storm on the king side. Now white decides to exchange on d6. Now that's a very double-edged move. There's a seemingly natural move, but very double-edged, as we're going to see a little later. Bishop a3. So yes, this is a sensitive spot in black's position. So white's counterplay is starting and looking not bad. f4. Well, of course, that's the standard move in the Grand Prix attack, and it could have been played a few moves before. So it opens up the bishop's diagonal, and there's potentially pressure on the f-file. Knight d2, that knight swinging around, but it does leave the king side. Knight f5, so black's pieces are massing very nicely. So at this point, Simon decided, okay, I would like a queen exchange. A very understandable idea. He gives a check and then plays e4. Oh no, that's a very interesting idea. Right. Here is where I'd like you to have a think, and I'm going to have a drink. What did Norbert play in this position? Cheers. Do you want to improve your chess? Get access to live masterclasses with yours truly? Then subscribe to patreon.com/PowerPlayChess, and for just $25 a month, you get a newsletter with a test game, calculation puzzles, a monthly opening survey, access to an archive with over 100 opening surveys. And you can join in live masterclasses exclusive to patrons where you can ask me questions directly over Zoom. All for only $25 per month. Do subscribe to patreon.com/PowerPlayChess and join the club. So with e4, of course, this diagonal opens. So it means that black doesn't have time to play pawn takes pawn en passant because the queen would be on prise. And if black exchanges queens, then of course en passant is no longer available. And well, I mean, black is still okay here, but I think the danger has passed for white on the king side. So what would you play here with black? What did Norbert play? Well, Norbert came up with a beautiful idea. Knight takes g3. Wonderful stuff. Now, white's best is simply to exchange queens here, going into an endgame, a pawn down. But Simon thought he could withstand the attack, and he played f takes g3. I should mention that if h takes g3, watch what happens. Bishop g4. Queen moves away. Pawn takes pawn. So threatening mate on h2 here. And after pawn takes pawn, bishop b6 check. Wow, there we go. That bishop comes into play, and that is checkmate. Wow. Now we're going to see that bad bishop bounce in the game as well. So knight takes g3, f takes g3, bishop b6 check. Yeah, it's a classic bad bishop bounce, just like you see in the Kalashnikov, often the Sveshnikov, the Najdorf, sometimes even the King's Indian. Several openings where it happens. And in mirrored, you see it in the French defense, bishop c8, d7, e8, g6, for example. But this is just such an attractive attacking move. Incidentally, that's why white probably shouldn't have exchanged on d6. And now the bishop comes out, bishop g4. Actually, Norbert makes an inaccuracy at this moment. If he'd played the rook over to f8, then black has a winning position. On the next turn, black will take and then invade with the rook, and it's game over. But he got the move order just a little bit wrong. He played pawn takes pawn first. So threatening mate on h2, so that has to be taken. Then rook f8. He must have thought this was just winning immediately. And it does look incredibly dangerous with, for example, rook f2, bishop f2. You know, these moves look absolutely killing. Or indeed, just exchanging all the rooks and then bishop f3 is absolutely crushing. But Simon found a very, very clever defense. I mean, it's absolutely the only move here. And that's rook f5, just returning material. So to unblock the f-file, that rook has to be taken. It's a pity to give up that beautiful bishop. And actually black has to be very careful here. If rook takes f5, then bishop d6, and white is better. So this didn't happen, but if rook takes bishop d6, that's better for white. The counterattack comes through. Notice these crucial squares are controlled, and that is suddenly good for white. So it's a really chaotic position. And here Norbert played queen e2. So he's found a way to keep the initiative going, attacking the knight. And here, well, white blundered. Simon played the natural knight e4, and well, we're going to see how that loses in a second. White should play queen e1, although that gives up another pawn. Then, well, white has survival chances here after bishop e4. Okay, but let's go back to the game. I mean, as I said, such a difficult position, but this was the final blunder. Now rook takes pawn, and there really is no defense to the rook slamming down on the back rank. So the game finished. Bishop takes d6, rook f1 check. And obviously rook takes rook, and it's mate next move. I think it's a wonderful attacking game. There are a few ups and downs, you know, some inaccuracies from both sides, but I like Norbert's aggressive intent here. And knight g3 was an absolutely splendid move. And yes, it's always good to see a bad bishop bounce succeed. So well done to Norbert Fruehauf on a splendid game.